Hello listeners and welcome to this week's episode of The Cult Vault. This week we have 2 episodes. I'm your speaker Casey and I have a few things to get through before we start. First of all, thank you to everyone who joined in with last month's monthly memoir giveaway. You can now purchase a copy of Helen's ebook yourself for only 99 cents if you live in the States. We have a new book to celebrate across December, and that is Lisa Cohn's To the Moon and Back, A Childhood Under the Influence, a coming-of-age memoir about Lisa's time spent in the Unification Church. You can go back and listen to an interview with Lisa, where we discuss her life and her book, on episode 91 of the podcast. To get involved in this monthly memoir giveaway of Lisa's book, simply comment, follow, and like any posts on my social media pages across the month of December. You can find me at Cult Vault Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Also, a massive thank you and welcome to our newest patron, Heather. Welcome on board. I hope you enjoy the exclusive content. I have added your name to my list of sponsors on the podcast website, and I look forward to bringing you and the others more episodes each month. Also, thank you to Amanda, who has increased her Patreon pledge. And as a token of my huge appreciation to all of my patrons, each of you has been offered a copy of Helen Zuman's Mating in Captivity across the month of December, as well as an exclusive Cult Vault bookmark. You can become a patron from as little as £1 a month at patreon.com/thecultvault. December marks my first listener challenge. I am asking each listener to recommend the podcast to family and friends and help me to get to 300,000 downloads before New Year's Eve. If we can do this, I will be releasing 2 episodes a week in January instead of the usual 1. And lastly, I am so excited to announce that I will be joining CrimeCon 2022 in London in June on Podcast Row. Come and join me, come and take part. You can get 10% off admission prices by using the code CULTLIVE. All patrons can get 15% off with a special code. And if anyone is interested in coming down and getting involved, I would love to see you there. Now let's get to today's show. This episode is with Daphne, who talks us through her time spent in 2 troubled teen programs, Pacific Quest and Maple Lake Academy. Daphne has had a difficult journey and her story includes themes of abuse, but it is also incredibly inspiring with the road to recovery that Daphne has taken almost independently. Here is Daphne to talk us through these experiences. So hello, Daphne, and welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today and agreeing to share your story. Would you like to start by introducing yourself to the listeners?
Yeah, sure. So in 2017, I went to a program called Pacific Quest, and then a few months later, I got sent to a program called Maple Lake Academy, and I was there for almost a year. I experienced emotional and verbal and sometimes physical abuse at these places. And for a long time, I thought I was one of the only people who experienced this. But after the Paris Hilton documentary came out, I was able to learn more about this whole industry and that I wasn't alone in this. So after coming to terms with what happened and being more comfortable with it, I think that I'm ready to share my story. And I hope that if anyone's going through the same thing, it helps you too.
I think it's so empowering that people such as yourselves are coming forward to talk about this, to get these stories out in the open and to make people aware of the types of institutionalized abuse that people are experiencing, especially as 2017 was not long ago at all. And a lot of the stories that come through on this podcast, have been from the last sort of 40 years, but none are really as recent as this one. So it'll be interesting to hear more of your story and understand how these programs are, even though your experience was so recent, it's still so similar to so many of the other wilderness programs and therapeutic boarding schools that we've heard about on the show. So what can you tell us about Pacific Quest? Whereabouts in the world is this based?
So it's in Hawaii, and it's up in the mountains for the first part, and then they have a camp for the second part.
Why were you originally sent to Pacific Quest? What was going on in your life before you arrived at this program?
So there were a lot of events that happened in my life leading up to the program, and I only realized like about a year ago that a lot of my behaviors were because I was on the wrong medication, and it's not like I could really defend myself because I was only like 16, and well, I was 15 when I started like having a lot more medication, and it didn't help me. Like, I don't doubt that medication and antidepressants can help other people, but it didn't work for me. So a lot of my behaviors are really impulsive. The worst thing that happened to me in that time period was I overdosed and I was hospitalized. So my life wasn't really going great. And then I got put on a medication called risperidone, and it really wasn't good for me. I felt like passing out all the time, and I couldn't go to school. So my therapist suggested that I get diagnosed with psych testing, and I was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, which I don't really think I have now, but I feel like this diagnosis was used against me because it got passed on to an educational consultant who recommended me programs, and I was supposed to only go to Pacific Quest. So I thought, I'm not going to school because I can't handle it. So why not just go? So I went to PQ.
You're struggling with your mental health. You're being given different types of medication that aren't particularly helping you in any way kind of get through these experiences. And then you meet with this person who's recommending different programs. Is this person, do you know if they were receiving any type of commission?
Yeah, with the educational consultant, the funny thing is I never met her. So all my psych testing was being passed to her. Like, she talked to my parents and my therapist, but never to me. Whoa. Which is already pretty sketchy. So yeah, I've never spoken to this person in my life, but she ruined my life. So
oh my goodness. So yeah, this person is looking at you on paper basically and making decisions based off of...
she talked to my parents, but yeah.
And she's probably going to take one look at the medication that you're on and your history and make a decision based on those things without even speaking to you.
The decision was mostly made off of the autism spectrum disorder thing. And I don't think I don't really have a lot of things that would make people think I'm autistic. I think that the main thing was my medication really slowed me down. So I had a flat affect. So I think that's why people thought I had it. But yeah, I was diagnosed with it, and then I got recommended programs for girls with autism. But at the time, I thought I was only going to Pacific Quest and I'd come back. Like, I had all the arrangements with my school that I would come back for the next grade.
So you're not in school. You're being recommended these programs. How long is Pacific Quest supposed to be? How long are you told you'll be there for?
So it was supposed to be 3 months. So if I were to get there in April, I would have been done by the summer. And then in the next school year, I could have come back. And that was the plan.
In your mind, you're being recommended this program that will help you to manage these different issues that you've had ongoing in your life for a while.
Also, I wasn't going to school, so I thought if I can get credits at this place and hopefully get better, then I don't see any issue. And everyone around me was telling me it was a good idea.
You're agreeing to go to this program under the guise that you'll be home in a few weeks to go back into education in a much better place than you are before you attend Pacific Quest.
Yeah, like, I really believed I was going to go home.
How do you arrive at this first program? Talk us through that kind of decision, the conversation with your parents, you agreeing to go to Pacific Quest, and then your journey to that program.
So I actually was able to have a vacation with my family for 1 week before I went. So like I was still able to like be a normal person. Like, it wasn't like I was in like complete danger at the time I went there. Like I was just like on vacation and then they dropped me off. And when I got there, like I didn't realize this was weird until I started like reading other people saying it was weird, but I had a strip search. So like I faced a wall and then they made me pull down my pants and then they wrote down what was on my legs, like if I had any bruises. And at the time, I think I was like nervous, so I didn't really think it was weird. But I read people were complaining about having to do that, and I'm like, wait, I did that, you know?
That being the initial experience that so many people are coming forward and saying that they've had inflicted on them, it's so uncomfortable to imagine how many young people have had that experience, like how exploited and vulnerable that must make young people feel, and confused as well. You're supposed to be going to this place to help you after an attempted suicide, and then you're being subjected when you first arrive there to strip searches and cavity searches. I just don't understand it.
Yeah, but like the thing is, at the time, like I was pretty out of it, so I didn't think it was wrong. And like I was kind of okay at the start. So the first part was this, like we weren't allowed to talk to anyone, and were in these little hut kind of things. Like it's hard to explain. It's like a box that you sit in, and they said this first phase was for self-reflection. So like basically we just like couldn't talk to anyone except the staff, and we had like really structured days, and every time we did something we had to call out what we were doing. So we say, can I go to the bathroom? Then we go to the bathroom, then we have to ask to wash our hands. So every single thing we do we would have to ask.
And were you ever supposed to remain within the eye line of staff at these times? Are you expected to go do these things like with a buddy?
They could see the whole camp because it was on a mountain. It wasn't a safety concern, like why we had to call out what we were doing. Like they always said it was this thing called self-efficacy, but it never really made sense. Like now looking back, I think it was a way to control us or make us like dependent on them, because like it didn't make a lot of sense to ask for those things when they could see us the whole time.
Oh, that's uncomfortable to think about, that lack of privacy. Was this something that you were expecting when you were told about this program?
I think I didn't really know what to expect. Like I think in my mind it was more like, oh, I can come back in a few months, then I'll be normal again. Like that's kind of, I wasn't really thinking of the program itself. I was more thinking about like going back to school at the end of it.
Can you explain to us the arrangements for things like sleeping? How many of you attended this program at one time? Was it always a set amount of people, or did the numbers change? And then were you all expected to kind of sleep in a dorm like environment?
So there were about, I think I'd say 5 to 10 people in a camp at a time, but like I think sometimes there'd be up to 12 if there were a lot of people at once. So in the sleeping arrangement, there were 3 bunk beds, so 6 people sleeping in the dorm, but we would only be indoors to sleep. Like we would be in the camp all day and then be taken back to the dorms just to sleep, and they'd wake us up and we'd go right back.
Right. Okay. So it was very much geared towards being in the campsite.
Yeah.
And sometimes we often see this coming through on the show as well. The way that these programs are, of course, this is the effect that they would have. Otherwise, nobody would ever go to these programs off of their own kind of decision making. But they seem like great places to go. Like you're going to be learning basic life skills, like how to make fire and how to build shelter, and you're going to go and be surrounded by other like-minded people who may be struggling with some of their own life issues that you might be able to find some common ground with. And they're going to equip you, like the program will equip you with the skills to go home and maybe better manage some of the more difficult things that you were struggling with before you go. So on paper, that does sound like a place that would really be helpful, living in the camp and contributing towards keeping things tidy and maintaining the shelters and like scouts and things like that.
Yeah, so actually the guides themselves, like I don't have any bad things to say about the guides who are the people who would like do our daily activities, like they cook us food sometimes, and then they would organize our gardening activities and exercise activities. Like the guides are great people. The issue is with the therapists and the people who run it. So I almost feel like the guides are taken advantage of as much as we are, because they get really bad pay and really long hours. So I think they work 16 hours a day for a week, and then they have an off week. So I think that's not really good pay because like they take a whole week off.
The actual guide staff are helpful and provide a proactive schedule that works for the majority of people participating in the program whilst you were there, at least.
Yeah, but the therapists are the ones who are causing all of my problems there. Like I didn't have problems with day-to-day activities like gardening or any of that. Like
right.
Even the shower situation, like we had to shower in a shed with cold water. Like I would not think that. When I look back, I don't see that as something that bothers me at all. It was definitely the emotional abuse I experienced from my therapist.
And how often were you expected to sit down and speak with this therapist?
I think 3 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week. I can't really remember.
And when you sat down with your therapist, was it an environment where you were expected to kind of just have conversations where you talk through your difficulties and receive maybe some guidance on how to build on those things? What did those sessions with the therapist look like?
I think at first it was fine. Like they were pretty standard conversations when you start having a new therapist. Like I've had a bunch of therapists, so like I'm used to the whole routine of like explaining everything that's happened to me until that point. But things kind of changed for me in I'd say like after a week. There was this incident where this boy was handing me notes, and since we weren't allowed to talk to each other, I thought that I made a friend and I was happy about it. I wrote in my journal, oh, someone wants to be my friend. But then he started to take advantage of me and touch me when I didn't want to. And when this was found out, it was used against me. And that's when like the program shifted a lot.
My goodness. You're in this place, extremely vulnerable. Somebody has taken advantage of you and you're the one that receives punishment for that situation. That's absolutely awful.
Yeah, and I felt really guilty about it. Like somehow I was like, because the reason he was there was he got a girl pregnant. So I think that since I felt blamed, I thought to myself, oh no, I ruined the baby's life. And I was blaming myself for hurting some baby who's not born. And I started to like act out in front of my therapist. Like in day-to-day activities, I was fine, but in front of my therapist, I would like act kind of erratic. And I ended up getting on a status where I had to be at arm's length from people at all times. So I was never alone.
Was that typical of other residents that are having difficulties in the program?
Yeah, but it wasn't just the arm's length. It was also like I always had a foot in the door when I used the bathroom or the shower. And I always had to pat myself down to make sure I didn't have anything on me. I wasn't allowed shoelaces, and, that kind of thing.
Oh my goodness. How long do you actually end up staying in Pacific Quest for?
I was there for around 2.5 months.
So you arrive at this program with an idea of how it's going to be when you leave. And shortly after, you have this incident with this young guy that takes advantage of you, and then you start to have difficulty within the program and spend the rest of it treated like you've done something wrong and not really receiving the help that you went there to get.
I wouldn't say that I was punished exactly for what he did. It's more like what he did kind of like triggered something in me, and some of my behaviors, like I wasn't putting anyone in danger, but I feel like they thought they could use like the way I was acting, because like I was reacting to something traumatic that happened to me, and I feel like my behavior like made them put me on this thing, and that helps build their case for putting me in another program. So of the people I've known there, the ones who were able to go home, the reason was never, oh, they got better. The reason was always financial reasons, like their parents can't afford to send them anywhere else.
Right, okay.
So I think I was never going to go home. And the fact that it happened to me and I was reacting that way, like I was building their case for not going home.
And you also mentioned that you think it was to do with your diagnosis of being on the autism spectrum that contributed to that decision making as well.
Yeah, because so basically one day my therapist sat me down and she said that my parents told her that they weren't surprised about what happened to me. And she told me that they didn't want me to come home. And she said they want me to go to Maple Lake for girls with autism. And that really affected me. I think at first she told me that my parents expected that to happen to me, and I reacted bad to that. So I think I was off of the watch for like where someone was following me all the time for like a week or two. But I was put on it again because she told me that my parents didn't want me home and I was going to another program. And then I got up and I started running because I was so scared.
She doesn't sound like a particularly great therapist, this lady, if she's telling your parents that me. Absolutely. Firstly, she's gone to your parents and said, well, you know, I had a feeling this interaction that or experience that you've had with this other participant of the program.
She told me that my parents said they expected it to happen.
Sorry, I thought you were saying that she said to your parents she expected something like that to happen because of the diagnosis of autism, and that would put you in a box of being more vulnerable than perhaps a person without that diagnosis. But she's come to you and told you that that's what your parents have said.
Yeah, she said that my parents said that, oh yeah, of course she'd do that or something.
And they never, you found out later that they didn't say any of those things?
Yeah, and even though like I don't really feel great about my parents, like I don't think that they would lie about that. Like,
I mean, once you've been through the programs, it doesn't seem like there'd be much point to deny it if, you know, if you'd already been through those experiences. But were you expected to continue taking these different medications during your time at Pacific Quest, the ones that were not right for you?
Yeah, I took them for the whole time. I actually didn't stop taking them until a year after I got back from Maple Lake. So, yeah.
Okay, so your time in these programs, looking at the tools to help you to navigate these difficult situations outside of these programs and at home, there was no discussion or attempt at changing your medication or the amount of medication that you were taking and seeing if that was perhaps aiding the difficulties that you were having?
I think they tried, but around the time that they cut down my dosage, that's when she said, your parents don't want you home, you're going to a program. And then I got up and ran, so they moved it back up again because of me doing that.
It's almost like a juxtaposition in my mind as you describe it, because we've had somebody come on the show and speak about one of these programs that they attended in Hawaii. And I can't remember off the top of my head if it is the same program in Hawaii. She said it was absolutely beautiful. All the day was spent outside, in the beautiful warm weather. The diet was really good. There was like plenty of like fresh fruits and vegetables available, and everybody was fed really well. And this program particularly was fine, but then she was automatically shipped straight onto another program that really wasn't okay. And that's where she experienced a lot of the abuse that you're talking about here with your program. Mm-hmm. So when you think about Hawaii and how beautiful it is there, and the experience that this other person has spoken about, to think about Hawaii and how beautiful it is and how rich it is, and to have this routine of camp life that that you're contributing to, and to have all of that unravel because of the strange approach on therapy that this lady seems to have, it's really unfortunate, because it sounds as if perhaps if you would have had somebody whose approach was different to this woman, then this program may have actually been the answer for you.
I actually don't think so, because the whole purpose of that program is to get you to another program. Like, right. Even the people who did well there, they never went home, even though like they seemed okay all the time. Like I said, the only reasons they would go home is if like their parents bought a house and they couldn't afford it.
It's like a farm for participants to send them off to other programs just to keep feeding the profits made in this industry then, basically.
Yeah.
So when you're told that you're going on to another program and you have this distressing reaction where you run and you just keep running, what happens after that? Are you picked up by staff and taken back? How long is it before you're expected to move on to this next program?
So everyone stopped me in the driveway, and then they drove me up to the mountains again, and then they told me I could sleep up there or I can go back to the dorms, and I chose to go back to the dorms. And then I spent like most of the rest of the program on arm's length again. I had to do like all the pat downs and the foot in the door thing. And then I was home for a few months because of my visa getting processed. So in that time, I had tutoring so I could try to catch up on school. And I was actually okay with going. And I wouldn't have gone if I had known that my parents like were okay with whatever I wanted. Like I was really convinced that they didn't want me there anyway, because that's what she told me. And the thing I was looking forward to was riding the horses, but you know, I never really did. So yeah, the horses are just kind of to make it look good. But
Maple Lake that you're going on to, this is the one advertising the horseback riding.
Yeah, like they told me it was equine therapy, and I thought that sounded fun. So like I thought my parents don't want me home, like there'll be horses there, like why not?
Yeah. Wow, equine therapy, that's something I've never heard of. Yeah, I can see that, actually, taking care of the horses, brushing the horses.
I ended up spending more time cleaning the barn than interacting with horses.
In your mind, you've gone home for a few months, you're ready to go onto Maple Lake Academy, because you're thinking, well, my parents don't want me here. I can go and be with the horses in the pastures and spend time with them, and so I'd rather be there than in a house where my parents don't want me, because that's what you've been told is true.
Yeah.
So do your parents, do they take you over to this program?
Yeah, they took me to Utah and dropped me off.
So another program based in Utah. and we're seeing so many of these stories come through now from that particular part of the world.
Most of them are in Utah.
It's quite scary, really. When you say that your visa's being processed, like where is home for you? Where did you grow up?
I live in Singapore.
So you're waiting for your visa to be able to go and have a long stay over in the States?
Yeah.
And then once that's granted, your parents take you over there. What are your first impressions of Maple Lake Academy?
I think at first I was overwhelmed because it was very loud. And I remember when I went there, they were doing some recreational therapy activity, and it was really loud. And it's not kind of what I pictured, where everything was calm with the horses. And I also noticed that the staff was really young. So
Right.
they were actually around like 22, 24 years old average, and they're like undergraduate college students, mostly from BYU, Brigham Young University. Yeah.
I was going to ask if there was any kind of Mormon affiliation, because there's so many of these programs in Utah, and obviously we're talking about some of the homelands for, the Church of the Latter-day Saints and Brigham Young University and all of these things around Mormonism. So you think that there is a strong tie between the Mormon faith and Maple Lake Academy specifically?
I wouldn't necessarily say Mormon faith, but more the mentality of it, if that makes sense. Like I said, in PQ, the guides, like great people, like I feel like they're getting taken advantage of because they're doing hard labor for low pay. But in Maple Lake, like it's definitely like most of them were not good people. And like their mentality was like, because you know how like they shun people, like they would really turn on you and like make you feel bad. Like, and these are just 22 to 24-year-olds. Like I have friends who are like 22. It kind of blows my mind that these people were responsible for my safety.
And do you know if any of these staff members themselves were participants of the program before they went on to be on the payroll?
Like they went to Maple Lake first?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that only happened once, but I never met that staff member. It happened years ago.
Right. Okay. So when you first arrived there, you said it was really loud. And is this like a group session that you're witnessing, like a common get together that happens throughout the days and weeks at Maple Lake Academy?
Yeah, it was a recreational therapy activity, and I didn't really know about that there would be recreational therapy. Like I thought the therapy would be with the horses because that's what people told me. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't really allowed to have access to internet. So like, it's not like I could go check. So yeah, I was confused about the type of therapy we were doing. And I was confused why all the people taking care of us were in college.
Yeah, I would be the same if I got there and had people not much older than myself, especially if they were not particularly qualified to be doing that. How many people are in your particular program whilst you're at Maple Lake?
I think 16 is what they usually have, sometimes 17.
You've got around about 17 people in a program. And what would you say are the varying ages, sort of youngest to oldest?
The youngest, like the age is like 13 to 17, but some 18-year-olds would stay, but they'd have to sign something so that they can stay there, but they can legally walk out at any time. And there were some people I knew who joined when they were 12.
Wow. Okay. So you've got at one end, you've got people as young as 12. Oh my goodness. 12 years old. And then on the other side of that, you've got people up to the age of 18. And then some of the staff members are 4 years older than that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. And the staff are the people that are running these recreational therapy sessions?
They didn't do recreational therapy. We had this recreational therapist, and she was quite verbally abusive, but when she did it to us, it was okay. But if we said a swear word, we would get punishments. So like she would swear at us and say really horrible things to us all the time, but we were told, oh no, she cares about you. That's why she's hard on you. But she said really awful things to me, like I was going to end up in a women's shelter, is something she told me a lot.
So you've arrived at Maple Lake Academy, you're 16 years old, you expect this equine therapy and a different atmosphere than the one that you were subjected to at Pacific Quest in terms of this strange female therapist that you had there and her weird kind of manipulation tactics on ferrying participants onto other programs. So you arrive at Maple Lake Academy. As soon as you get there, you see this recreational therapy event happening with various participants. Some of them could be aged 12, some of them could be 18. Are you subjected to a strip search at this program?
I wasn't at this program.
Okay. And what about your personal belongings and where you're going to be staying? Are you taken with staff members and shown where you'll be sleeping
so the Maple Lake is actually like a house.
Okay.
Like it's a pretty big house, and there's like 5 bedrooms, and they have bunk beds in them. Like some of them have like, I think it's like 3 to 4 girls in a room.
So you did mention before this is like an all girls program, and if you're looking at it from inspiration that this program may have taken from something like Mormonism, it would make sense that this program is only geared towards one gender and not mixed.
Yeah, but they actually have a boys' school, but I actually have a friend who went to the boys' school, and the way they're treated over there is quite different to how they treat the girls.
Really? That's interesting. Now, are we talking the type of misogyny that we might see in a lot of faith-based movements where women are almost looked down upon in comparison to men, or are the men and young men over in the male version of the program treated worse than you would say the females are?
So autism is a lot different in boys than girls, at least from what I saw. So I think in the boys' school, it's more like they just want to keep everything under control. But so like they put them through like harsh things, like kind of like toxic masculinity, like that there's I don't know. Sorry, I can't really speak on their experiences.
No, and that's absolutely fair enough. And probably a very wise answer, because of course that is a program that you never attended, so you can only speak from what you've been told. So So
but can I say like what the girls' school was like that someone from the boys' school like said that didn't happen with us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So in the girls' school, a lot of our progress was based on how much we would cry in front of everybody. So actually for the first part of the program, I was pretty good at like figuring out what they wanted from me. And I noticed that when I showed emotion and gave a lot of my personal personal things that have happened to me away in groups, I would get praised for it. And the reason like why you want to do all the programs is you earn freedoms of like privileges. So something I really wanted to do was have like 15-minute breaks alone outside, or be able to get my laundry by myself without having a staff member with me. So I was kind of like sharing a lot of like emotional things just so I could get those privileges, because that's how they based our progress. But in the boys' school, they didn't have that, and they weren't encouraged to show emotion as much, from what I've heard.
Yeah, and that does kind of tie in with what you were saying about toxic masculinity. And what would happen if you were somebody that didn't want to show emotion in any of these sessions? You just weren't given any privileges at all?
It's not like the privileges were given whenever we did something. It's like over time, like we have to build that image of, wow, you're so vulnerable. So the people who like didn't want to share a lot are the ones who would get um like criticized a lot for how they were. And that's kind of how I was later on in the program. And like it basically confirmed what I thought. Like I have to keep giving and giving and sharing with these people that I don't feel comfortable with in order to get to the program and get privileges, like just to go outside.
Yeah, and it's strange that they label things like going to do your washing on your own as a privilege, because that is like, to most people, like an everyday chore that people just have to kind of. So it's interesting that they pitch rewards to people, and privileges that are just things that, I don't know. It's strange because a privilege to me is like a trip to a theme park or something, or like a I don't know, if you're interested in drawing and stuff, like a brand new like set of pencils and a nice like pad to draw on, or a new set of paints and things like that. A privilege to me are not like things that, like going for a walk outside. Surely that's just like not a privilege, but like
so there's this thing called the Success Program, and like it was like an acronym for something I can't remember. So one of my friends there, she called it the Sucks Ass Program.
Yeah.
Yeah. And basically we have to like get these signatures, and then when we complete all the signatures, we can apply for this thing called Dreams. And in Dreams you get like maximum privileges, and like one of them is making your own food, and you have a phone, and you can like opt out of things when you don't feel like it. So like that's already like maximum freedom in those programs.
That is so strange. And
yeah, but a lot of the people who had Dreams had like pressure to still go to all the programs because they can take it away from you.
What about things like listening to your own music and reading your own books and things like that? Are they things seen as privileges? Are they things that you are allowed to access freely as you wish, or is that all kind of restricted in terms of your leisure time?
If you weren't being punished, then you could listen to music. We had iPod shuffles, but we couldn't have explicit music on it. And when we went to the library, they would look through our books to make sure there's nothing inappropriate.
So just talk us through the average sort of day and week for a participant of Maple Lake Academy where you attended. What were the sort of daily routines and activities? How often were you supposed to see this new therapist and all of those kinds of things?
So we would get up and have breakfast. Some people would shower in the morning because we had scheduled showers. And then we'd have school, and school is something that like I feel like insecure about because we didn't really have proper education. They would put 12th graders and 8th graders in the same class.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So I could never really challenge myself there. One time I wrote an essay about the movie Sing with the cartoon animals. And my final exam for science was writing down something on a scrap piece of paper and handing it to the teacher.
Right. Okay. So very different from sort of mainstream formal education.
Yeah, because they had to accommodate like the 8th graders or like people who weren't at 8th grade level. So like, yeah, I feel really insecure about my intelligence because of how much I've been held back. So like there's the school thing.
Yeah, you probably do need to cut yourself some slack there though, because there's a very different I think there's a big difference between exam smart and school smart and book smart, and then kind of just average intelligence, if that makes sense.
And it's more like I feel insecure about my capabilities because I feel different to everyone else.
And when you were to finish this program, if you completed it and you were at the end of sort of high school age, were you expected to graduate with the equivalent of a high school education?
Yeah, I have an American high school diploma, but it's more based on credits.
Right. Okay. So when you go through this program, you do have some school lessons which you feel quite uncomfortable with. How often are you supposed to see this therapist?
Oh, so I'd only see her twice a week for individual therapy, then once for family therapy.
Right. So you do have one-to-one sessions with her, and then you have sessions in front of the or with the entire peer group.
Oh, that's group therapy is separate. So like in group therapy, we have all the therapists. So like there are 3 therapists and the girls are kind of like split among them. And then all 3 therapists do groups on different days of the week.
Right. So when you say family therapy, do you mean you and your parents?
Yeah, I mean my parents.
Right. Okay. I thought that family was a term being used for the collective group of participants at Maple Lake. Right. Okay. So what was one-to-one therapy like?
So I could tell that my therapist didn't really take her job seriously. Sometimes she would laugh at things I said.
Oh my goodness.
And I wasn't allowed to make fun of people in my therapy because like she said I was being mean, but I was just expressing how I feel when I'm frustrated with people.
This seems to be quite a common theme with this therapist. She's allowed to say awful things to all of you.
Oh no, that's a different therapist. That's
my goodness. Okay.
Therapist. So the recreational therapist is the one who is like, oh, she's giving you tough love because she cares about you. And then this therapist like just doesn't care and it's kind of obvious. And so that therapist, she was like in her 30s and she still wasn't married and she was Mormon. So in the time when I got there, she started dating this guy. And then a few months later, she was engaged, then she got married, then she got pregnant. And I wasn't there for a year. So, like, all of that happened in a few months. Mm-hmm. And she told me her dream job was to be a stay at home mom. Right. So, like, I kind of figured out that she was just having that job until she could quit. And
that is such an unprofessional and unneeded statement to make to somebody that's there to receive like therapy to help them.
Yeah, and she quit right after I left.
Oh my goodness. Right. So
she had her baby.
So you've got this recreational therapist that you see during group therapy, and you've got your one-to-one therapist who's very unprofessional.
Oh, wait, no, the recreational therapist is recreational therapy, and then group therapy is with all the therapists.
Oh my goodness. Right. Okay. Let me work this out. Right. You've got one-to-one therapy and family therapy, and they're both with the same therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And she's the lady that couldn't wait to leave and have her baby and stay at home.
Yeah.
Right. And then you've got your recreational therapist, which is different to this married therapist.
Yeah.
And she's the one that's supposedly given out tough love to everybody.
Yeah. And then she worked at the women's shelter. Like, that's kind of disrespectful to the people she works with to use it as a threat, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Like, you're going to end up at the women's shelter. Like, but she works at the women's shelter. So it's almost like she's saying it as a compliment, even though she's intending it as a non-compliment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's strange.
And one of the therapists in the group therapy, Like she kind of would single me out sometimes, and she would say, um, I'm worried about you. I think you're going to get raped and left dead on the side of the
Oh
street.
my goodness.
And she said this multiple times, like
What?
sometimes I'm in the side of the street, sometimes I'm in the middle of the street,
Oh my goodness. What she would say this to you and others, or did she
in
seem to
front of
single you out?
everyone. Like she would
That's
single me out in the group in front of everybody. Like she'd say, Daphne, we're worried about you. We think we think that you're gonna, if you keep acting like this, you're gonna get raped and then you're gonna be dead.
that is absolutely horrific.
Yeah, and they would always like act like they're saying this because they're worried about you and you care, but I think the reason is like they're just trying to scare me or threaten me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is absolutely horrendous. And you're at this academy in the middle of nowhere in a country that's not your home country,
Yeah.
surrounded by all
Um,
these people that you don't know, expecting to be doing this equine therapy that seems to actually be non-existent, and you're being told by these so-called professionals that this is what they're worried is going to happen to you.
yeah.
That is absolutely, Daphne, that is terrifying.
Yeah, like now that I think about it, like I think I've kind of gotten used to the idea, but saying it out loud sounds crazy. Like I
Yeah,
actually
and the
tried to run away.
all right, okay, and that was that a result of one of these situations where a therapist has said one of these shocking things to you?
Actually, in this case, it was because of the staff.
Right.
So I was quite new, and there was this like incident with, it sounds so stupid, but my bras. Like I had old bras, and this one girl kept taking them and wearing them, but and then I told her it made me uncomfortable. So I asked one of the staff members to help me get my old bras back. And this girl threw a tantrum and she was screaming at me. And I was scared she was going to hurt me. Like she was really violent. And then I calmly told her, like, I actually don't even remember what I said, but I said something very calmly. And I got scolded for that. And she could yell at me and act violent towards me. And they didn't defend me. And that's kind of when I knew I wasn't safe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All because you're
And that,
having sort of almost an intimate item of clothing taken from
mhm.
you and worn by somebody else.
Yeah. And I I think that reason they didn't tell her off and they told me off was I'm easier to handle. And that's actually something one of the same staff member told me before. So there was a thing where we were changing rooms, and then someone was throwing a tantrum because they didn't want a certain bed. And then she said, "Oh, thanks for doing this, Daphne, because you're a lot easier than some of the other girls." Like she told me I was easier. So I think that's why she chose to scold me and not the one who was acting out, because they're trying to do what's convenient.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's at your detriment as well. So that's not particularly the correct way to handle that situation, because it also validates the behavior of the person that is making life, as they said, more difficult.
Yeah, and this person was actually my friend later on. Like, I understand that like she had her own issues, but it's their responsibility as a staff member to like protect me when someone's being violent to me, and they didn't do that. So I was really scared because I was like, because it really started to sink in like, wow, I'm in a place where these people will not protect me if anything
Mm-hmm.
happens to me.
Mm-hmm. That must be absolutely terrifying as well, especially because
Yeah.
a lot of the time when we've had people come on the show and speak about their experiences, and they've had these same sorts of revelations where things are starting to kind of become clear that the situation is going to be difficult for a lot of the guest speakers on the show, kind of that they're starting to realize that the program is maybe not what they thought it was, or that their time there is going to be extended even if they're on their best behavior. You kind of have these moments where people realize that they are in the middle of nowhere, away from everything that they know, and they have no way of being protected or any way to protect themselves. And
so when I ran away, I felt safer, like in the middle of nowhere, like just running around, than I did in the house. And I even passed by this one house that was all boarded up and had graffiti on it. And I was later told that this was the murder house because someone was murdered there.
Oh my gosh.
So like sometimes I just think, wow, I felt safer near the murder house than in that house, you know.
And are you mentioned that you continued taking your medication, your risperidone, until a year after you attended Maple Lake. So during your time in this program, you're still taking these same tablets.
Yeah. So I think I was able to fake it for quite some time to get the privileges, but I think like I couldn't keep it up like the other girls did, because other girls, like, they hated it too, but they were able to like fake it really well. And I think it couldn't last for me because I wasn't like capable of it because of what I was on, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But not only that, I think it just must grind everyone down, basically being false all the time, you know, kind of just behaving in a way that's not how you think or feel, just to make life as easy for yourself as possible.
And when I realized I couldn't handle it, that's when I started like openly resisting the program. And then the other girls would chime in on how my behavior is bad, but then be friends with me in private.
Right. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So the very much encouraging the self-policing system there. Is this how you became friends with the girl that threatened you earlier on as well, and made you kind of feel unsafe?
I think that like I don't really remember like how we made up, but like I just like there are some girls I really didn't like there, but and those girls just happened to be the ones who like loved the program more than anyone else. But the ones who were kind of like average in the program, like I like they would confide in me sometimes and say that they agreed with me, but they couldn't say anything about it. But in groups, like they wouldn't defend me. And I don't blame them because they're just trying to protect themselves.
Were you ever told that if you couldn't comply with the rules that your time at Maple Lake would be extended?
Yeah, like they would say like I could be there for 2 years if I keep acting like that.
And what's the shortest amount of time you were expected to spend there initially?
I think a year and a half. But I think that I was actually there for like an unusually short amount of time. The only person who was there, okay, there's two people who were there for a shorter amount of time. One girl was there for 10 months because her family couldn't afford it. And another girl was there she's actually also from where I live, Singapore. Like she lived here before and she was my roommate. And she was there for like 2 months, and she would get in these restraints like multiple times a day by like probably 4 people at once.
And why do you think you were there for such a short amount of time?
Because I got into college. I really pushed to apply to schools in Singapore, and I wasn't really sure of what I wanted to do at that point, but I saw that one of the schools was still taking applications, and then I like begged my parents to let me apply there, and then that's why I went to college.
Wow, Daphne, that's awesome. So you're all the way over in America, so far away from home, so far removed from everything that's typical in everyday life for you, and you still had the forethought to apply for university and get yourself out of this program and go back into mainstream education, and not just that, but further education, even though it was something that made you feel extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah, so I think one of the things in the success program book was looking at future careers. So I took it as an opportunity to look at colleges
that is
where
amazing, Daphne. That is so great, especially because you're at a program where you're supposed to be receiving therapy to help you manage, and you've gone off on your own to work out what you'll be doing after this program, and not even that, but just how to get out of the program early. So you're doing this, I'm guessing, just on your own, without the support of the staff or the therapists who are supposed to be the ones that are guiding you into a more comfortable everyday life.
Yeah, because I knew that if I was going to go home, it would be to go to college, because my parents wouldn't, they didn't suggest another school where I live, for a high school. So I knew it had to be higher education. And in my free time, I would do a lot of drawing so I could make a portfolio, because I went to art school. And so I was really trying to push, let me apply to college. And it was really last minute. I was getting teachers letters of recommendation the day before everything was due, and I was really hoping I could get in, not just because I wanted to go to college, because I wanted to leave, and I knew that they couldn't turn it down.
Oh, that's so great. And I love these parts of the interviews with people where they kind of come out with these really good positive snippets in between all of this awful stuff that's happened. And this is one of those really, really great bits of information that you've managed to kind of secure a place in further education despite all of your reservations around education itself. It's just absolutely, that's great. So
I actually never looked at it that way.
Yeah, I think that's something to be extremely proud of in your circumstance, to go ahead and have the willingness even to do that. I think you should be extremely proud of yourself for that. I think that's so, for people to do that for themselves in general at the age of 17 is great, but to do it in your situation is I think extraordinary. So I hope that you can continue looking at it that way going forward. But let's just jump back to these therapists again quickly. So right, let me see if I've got this right now. So there's the therapist that does the one-to-one therapy and the family therapy, and she's the lady that's quite unprofessional and laughs at you when you say things, but then doesn't let you talk negatively about anybody else, and says you're not allowed to bully people in my therapy sessions. Okay, so that's one therapist. Then you've got your recreational therapist, and she's the one that apparently offers tough love, but again, you're not allowed to say any negative things towards her because she gets offended by them.
Yeah, and we're not allowed to swear, only she is.
Right, okay. And then you've got your group therapist. Now, what is this therapist like?
Oh, so there's actually two other therapists that do the groups. So my therapist would do a group sometimes, and then other girls' therapists would also do the groups.
And so you've got basically here 4 therapists that you see during your time at Maple Lake Academy.
Yeah, pretty much.
And And you said that during the group therapy, there are three therapists, three therapists in total that have different girls that they spend time with.
Mm-hmm.
So do they all have a similar approach during this group therapy that is universal across all the sessions, or do they each have a different approach? And what do those group therapy sessions look like?
So for my therapist and one of the other therapists, like their sessions are pretty structured. Like they'll have a topic planned and then we just talk about it. Sometimes they'll show a video or something. Like those ones are really boring. But then this one therapist, the one who tells me I'll get raped and killed, like her sessions are always full of drama. Like somehow she gets people to like argue with each other and then she starts crying. Like she starts crying a lot in therapy for some reason.
So as the therapist herself, she is the one that's in a state of high emotion.
Yeah. And like her sessions are always like really emotional.
And are these each qualified therapists that you're spending this time with?
I mean, they have the master's degree. I think one had a doctorate, so I guess so. But
yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see all these different personalities. I know that we're doing the same thing that the original education officer did, but by just looking at them on paper. But it's interesting to see the different personalities and approaches that each of these different therapists had. But you did mention in your notes to me that there was one particular therapist who would divulge your confidential conversations.
Oh, that was my personal. Okay, so every Wednesday, I think they had this thing called Team, where they would bring up some of the staff members, so like bring up some college students and all of the like administrative staff and all of the therapists, and they would just talk about your personal information. And I knew this because like you can hear them from downstairs. And then you'd go upstairs and then they would like sign off your competencies in the success book. And like, but one time like they really brought me up there so they could like tell me I had a dark aura.
Like dark aura as in sort of like you change the atmosphere in the room when you walk in because you're so like unhappy. Is that what they mean? Or do they mean like in the mystical magical sense?
Oh, they meant it in a bad way, but not because I'm unhappy. I think they figured like they really singled me out a lot in that program compared to other people. So I think they knew that the other girls agreed with me and they didn't like that.
So you have a dark aura because of your non-compliance then?
Yeah, but I would still do all the chores. I would do all the school. It's just I didn't divulge my personal information in group and recreational therapy. Like that's why they thought I was bad. But I would say I had like quite a lot of friends. Like people enjoyed talking to me. Like there was nothing wrong with me, but I just didn't do what they wanted me to do.
I can understand that, especially when we watch TV and films, and I know that this is not an accurate way to look at things. But therapists, you're always looking for that breakthrough moment, and that comes from discussing things and talking about things and letting go of things that you might not want to talk about, things that are difficult to talk about, things that you might not remember properly because your brain has tried to protect you from not remembering such traumas. But firstly, the personal things that you are discussing in one-to-one therapy are being openly talked about with other therapists and staff members. And I can kind of see where they might say, like, if you were at risk of harming yourself, which it doesn't sound like during this program you were, I could see why staff might need to have those conversations, not specific not specifically relaying what you've spoken about in your therapy session, but I can kind of see why somebody might need to say, like, I've spoken to Daphne, she's having a difficult time, I'm worried she might try to hurt herself, so we need to keep an eye on her. That's very different to saying, like, in a group circle with all the staff and therapists, like, here's what Daphne said to me in our therapy session, like XYZ, like using, you know, specific things that you've discussed. So if that's happening to you, why would you want to go then into a recreational or group therapy session and openly speak about things that are difficult for you to talk about?
Yeah, like that's what didn't make sense to me, because I didn't even like all of the girls there, so why would I share it? And I always saw like personal thoughts or like feelings as kind of like transactional, so that I could get signatures. But when I stopped caring about the signatures, I was like, what's the point, you know?
And that seems to be the system that they've created themselves, you know. That's not like something that you've decided to manipulate or use for your own gain. That's actually the system that they've put into place, and the way that other people must be using the system for to gain their own so-called privileges as well.
Yeah, because at the beginning I got there, like when I got there, they said, oh, you fly under the radar, and that's a bad thing. But flying under the radar was doing everything I was supposed to. So they, like, I kind of figured out at that point what they wanted out of me. And I think that the reason why they try to make you vulnerable in front of people is so that you feel dependent on the program, because the ones seen as most successful in the program were the ones most dependent on it.
Yeah. And that summary there is a perfect way for us to imagine the lengths people must go to achieve all of these so-called privileges, and the amount of information and personal experiences, thoughts and feelings that people must have to expose to their therapists and to their peers in order to access these privileges must take a lot out of people, and then be praised by the staff so that everybody else will follow in those particular participants' footsteps.
Yeah, and there was also this expectation that we had to be like it was confusing, because they basically wanted us to be like really good friends with each other, but they would never say that. So like sometimes I would argue back and say, I can't be friends with everyone. They're like, yeah, that's definitely true. But then when I'm not getting along with people, they would criticize me for not like connecting. But I really did have friends. It's just, I think they knew that being friends with me would get them into trouble.
Yeah. And also the fact that they are encouraging friendships amongst everybody, but also at the same time pitting you against one another by saying, you know, to be more like Vanessa, who has all of these privileges, you need to do what Vanessa does in the therapy sessions and tell us all your deepest, darkest secrets, thoughts and feelings. That's not, I don't know, strange. So did you have a graduation ceremony when you finally finished your time at Maple Lake Academy?
That's actually a pretty crazy story. So I was getting in like a lot of trouble at that point. Like towards the end is when it got really bad. Like I got put in a restraint on the floor. So like two staff members grabbed me and then they pinned me to the ground. And then I knew that I definitely don't want a graduation or the farewell, because the farewells were really strange. So they lasted about 3 hours, and you'd go around a circle like saying good things about the person, even if you don't like the person. And then afterwards, there are these rituals where they pick you up and hold you up while listening to the song. And then you like hold hands in a circle, and then the circle kind of rolls up, and then it's like this big glob of people.
And are your parents there for your graduation?
So I didn't have the graduation. I was just saying what happens in the graduation.
Right, okay.
And farewell. Okay. So After I was put in the restraint, I kind of figured out I didn't want one. So I was already on arm's length at that point, I think. And I thought, I'm going to say something that gets me in trouble. And because I really didn't want to end it like that. So I said something that got me in trouble, and I got put on this thing called mattress. Um, so usually mattress is in the living room, so everyone can see you, and they make you wear scrubs, and you have to have a staff member with you, and you're just in a bed all day, and you can only go to the bathroom, and you can only eat, but only on the floor.
Oh my gosh. Right. So you're
Yeah, but
restrained and now you're eating off the floor.
so I didn't. So when I ran away and I got put on mattress, I was in the living room, and like I I had like the same protocols. I had to wear scrubs, but when it was my last week, I guess they were kind of fed up with me already, so they let me stay in my room and wear my own clothes. I didn't have to wear scrubs. You're limited to just your mattress. You can't talk to anyone. The only things I was allowed to have were the books that I already had from the library and my journals, but I couldn't get any new paper. And all like the only time I leave my mattress is to go to the bathroom, where a foot would be in the door, and to eat, but that was like sitting on the floor.
And your mattress it's in a room. There's roughly 4 girls to a room. Did you mention before?
Yeah, but typically mattress is in the living room. So you're in front of everybody and they just pass you by while you're in your scrubs.
And just go over again, what are scrubs in Maple Lake?
They're like what you wear in the hospital.
So when you are on mattress, which is in the living room in front of everybody, you're not allowed to wear your regular clothes. You have to wear these hospital like nurses like blue scrubs in front of everybody.
Yeah, and then people just pass you by and it's really awkward.
How many other people were on this mattress duty, or how many other girls were also on their mattress when you were on your mattress?
It wasn't a common punishment, but I saw it happen to I think two or three other girls when I was there.
And they just have you out in the open basically as like an example to people of what happens to you if you continue to try and run away.
Well,
Or
their excuse was always that we need to have someone in the living room so that they can look after the girls in the living room and you. But I kind of like realized that's not true, because since like they're like I said, they're already fed up with me, like they're not going to try to get me out of my room and get me into the scrubs. So like my last week was kind of like unusual. um yeah, so they were able to have someone look after me and they still did all the programs as normal. So like I definitely think there's like a humiliation aspect besides
it
just
feels
like
like it. I mean, what's the point behind the scrubs if I mean, I understand them with the excuse that you mentioned about needing somebody in the living room, like they can kind of explain themselves out of that, but why the scrubs in the middle of the room if it's not for
yeah, and
humiliation?
they're definitely capable of not having an extra staff in the living room, because I always had someone looking after me and they were able to function just fine and didn't even bring any new staff.
And if you are expected to have somebody follow you to the toilet to put their foot in the door, if there was more than one person on mattress, surely that would mean that they'd need more staff, because you'd need to like have a one-to-one situation so that you could be followed around. So even that doesn't make sense, like saying that they need.
Yeah, but they never had more than one person on it, so
yeah it's very strange. It's very strange. And do you think that they kind of had this attitude or approach towards you at this point because they knew you were leaving the program to go on to further education before your graduation, so you're not given any more money to the program, so they're kind of just like, well, we give up with you, then you can go on mattress and we're not going to try and help you anymore?
I actually never thought of that. That makes a lot of sense. I just thought that like they're done with my shit, so that's why they they just let me stay in my room. But yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Like
I
they have no more
wonder,
money than my
yeah.
dad, my parents.
I wonder if
Mm-hmm.
you would have continued on the program up until your graduation, or even longer, because you were kind of pushing back at this point, so they might have actually even extended your time in the program. I wonder if they would have not put you on mattress and continued trying to use their kind of strange approaches to therapy, because you were still
Yeah,
financially contributing to the overall program. And it would be interesting to know the answer. I don't know that we never will, but I just sometimes like to
yeah.
speculate about these things.
Even though no people weren't allowed to talk to me, there was one staff member, and she happened to be like one of the only ones who wasn't Mormon. She was very nice to me, and she talked to me, and she listened to me, and like she was like the one person who actually treated me like a person when I was on mattress. So like there were definitely good people, but like a much lower proportion compared to PQ.
And I do appreciate you kind of highlighting that moment, because it is important, I think, to take a second to recognize the moments in these stories and the people in these stories that aren't horrific, that aren't monsters, that aren't subjecting young people to this institutionalized abuse. And so we need to take a moment to appreciate those people who didn't fall into the cycle of abuse that's being inflicted on the various participants of these programs. And also because I feel like, especially after speaking to so many people, I am very accusatory of these programs. And I think that I assume the worst immediately, because I'm always drawing parallels between the various programs that have been spoken about on the show. So again, it's important to highlight the fact that not every single person that came through these programs treated you badly, and not every single therapist that was walked through the doors of that place went in there thinking that they would just manipulate these young people into bringing more money into the program. I'm sure some therapists have qualified going to these types of places and really hoping that they will make a positive difference. And I'm sure that a lot of these facilities and programs and schools even start out hoping to have a positive impact on young people's lives. It just doesn't seem to be going that way with the majority of the ones that we've spoken about.
Yeah, so the way like I see it in my head is like there's three types of people who work at these places. So one is like the bad people who have bad intentions. Like there's definitely a lot of those in Maple Lake. And then the second kind is like another one I would see quite a lot is they're like good people. Like they seem like they would be fine to hang around, and like they seem polite, but they're easily manipulated. So one time I didn't eat all day because they forgot to feed me because I had another thing, and then they ended up not giving me lunch. And it was dinner time, and I asked them if I could go leave early so that I could eat. And they said no, but then my mom asked, and then they said yes. So like they're scared of getting in trouble, so they would do something bad if I was the one asking for it, you know?
From your story and from what you've told us, that seems to be a very simple but effective way of summarizing the three different types of staff that you've encountered during your time in probably both programs.
Yeah, so a lot of them are good people, but they're doing something. They're willing to hurt people just because they think it's their job. And then the person who talked to me when people weren't allowed to, she would be the good person who like stays true to themselves, but those are a lot more rare.
Do you feel as if these these therapists and the staff that are perhaps not using the most efficient or effective tools on the people attending these programs, do you think that they genuinely believe that what they're doing is going to work, or that there is sort of a positive efficacy around what they're trying to do with the participants of their programs?
I think for the staff members, they think they're doing something good, but they're so young, they don't realize that what they're doing is basically abuse. I'm sure some of them know it, but I think most of them think that following orders from the people above them make them it makes them think they're doing the right thing. But the therapists, like, since they're more experienced, I think that they're more aware that they're hurting people and they enjoy it. So I think the therapists are more malicious, and then the staff, like, a lot of them are just naive, although some of them do like taking advantage and they seem to like it.
What's it like when you finally leave the program? Do you remember your last day there, and how it felt when your kind of parents came to get you and you finally left Maple Lake?
I was pretty happy about it. I was relieved I didn't have to do the farewell, because like the rituals are really not for me. But I remember one girl, like, I think she was like just 13, and she was really shocked that I was going all of a sudden. And like, I remember her being upset. So after I left, I remember my legs hurt because I hadn't been walking so much for like a whole week. And I remember after leaving, I would have really vivid nightmares that I was still there. And they were quite specific. There were like specific dates. Like there's a specific date that it was, and it was the day that this other girl was supposed to leave. And in my dream, she left and I was still there. And then I would wake up confused because I was in a hotel room and I was so confused, like, where am I? You know?
How long did it take you? I mean, did you go straight back over to Singapore at this point?
I had a vacation with my family, and yeah, that's why I was in a hotel room. Like, I would wake up and I would be scared, like, where am I? You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, somewhere that's not home, still somewhere that's not familiar to you, worried that you're...
Yeah, and I went straight to college like a month after leaving.
Oh my goodness. So my next question was going to be, what was your reintegration like into kind of normal, typical everyday life? But it sounds like you didn't even have that.
Yeah, it was really like confusing, and I just didn't feel like I could be around other people, and like it almost felt like I was learning how to be a normal person again. Like like I was happy to be out of the situation, but I didn't know how to do it. And I really almost dropped out because it was really hard for me to adjust.
And how has that changed since? Did you find going off to university kind of helped you navigate your kind of level of independence? Did it increase your anxiety? What was that journey like for you from leaving the program, having that family vacation, up until where you are now, just a short 4 years later?
Like, to be honest, like, I don't know how I did it, because there was this other traumatic thing that happened to me like 4 months after I got home. And I don't know how I made it through that, like, at the same time. Like, I really can't tell you. I just somehow did it. And I'm not perfect like dealing with it. Like, I cry about what happened a lot, and it really affects me, but I'm able to seem like a normal person. And people always tell me that I'm really put together, and like they don't know what I deal with, you know.
How to recover from this situation. You must be so dubious of going to visit therapists for professional help. after everything that you've been through?
Yeah, like it's been really hard. Like especially because like I was sexually assaulted 4 months after I got home, and I don't know how I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I could deal with that and deal with what happened to me just before, and also go to college and do something. Like I wasn't so confident at all at the same time. I just don't know, you know.
You've come from this situation of traumatic abuse, extreme emotional abuse at the very least, in these programs that you've been to. You've gone off to university in an environment that is completely new to you. Then you've been subjected to this awful experience of sexual assault, and you still went on to complete your university degree.
Yeah. Yeah, so actually it's like a diploma, and then I'm doing my degree now, but it's a 1 year thing. But the person who assaulted me, he was my friend from high school, and
oh my goodness.
he knew what happened to me. I explained, oh my gosh, a few months ago this happened to me. And I think that since he knew that, he used that to take advantage of me. And like, of course, like it was hard because like, you know, they always told me I would get raped.
Of course. Oh my goodness. But this is somebody that you have in your life that you trust wholeheartedly. Like you've opened up to them about these horrible experiences
we were
that you've
close
had.
friends. We were we
goodness.
were partners in school, and he told me I got him the highest grade he ever got because like I was good at that subject, and like I thought that he was my friend. And also like part of my parents being controlling is like part of the reason why it happened in a way. Like it's kind of complicated, but yeah.
Did you ever go on to report this person for what they did?
No, because I was mostly like surprised, and I didn't know how to process it. And also like he injured me when it happened, and I think I told some doctors when I was having the health problems, and then they told me that I couldn't prove it, so there was no point.
Oh,
and
Daphne. Yeah. That is so horrible. I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do anything about it.
You can't, but that doesn't mean that it's okay and that we shouldn't talk about it, and that he should, you know, not get away with what he did, but that there are no consequences to his actions. You know, that is the most difficult part. And I hope you know that even if you can't medically prove anything, there's always the opportunity to come forward and to tell law enforcement about what happened.
I think it is important to talk about, because not that it's ever anyone's fault, but some people, they see that you've been through that experience and they know that you're vulnerable.
Yes.
And like, I'm not saying that I could have prevented it, but like, I wish I knew that that's how he would interpret it, instead of, oh, my friend was hurt,
Yeah. And then we're touching on victim blaming almost as well, and how you don't want anyone to ever feel like what's happened to them is their fault, or that they could have prevented it or avoided it if they'd have done things differently, because you never brought this situation on yourself, because you opened up to somebody who you thought was a friend. And it's very important to make that distinction, I think. And also then we draw parallels between the manipulation and control tactics that are used in programs like Pacific Quest and Maple Lake, and then domestic violence, domestic abuse, sexual abuse, and those one-to-one situations and environments that people find themselves in that are very similar to the methods of control and manipulation that you see in the programs that we've talked about today. And it's very important to talk about the fact that no matter how much you are told in these programs that you will find yourself in this position, you never ever brought that on yourself, and there should be no level of victim blaming involved whatsoever. And I think it's for anybody that's listening that's had a similar experience, it's so important to kind of just put that out there. Have you sought any type of help since leaving the program? Have you found anything that's helped you recover from any of the situations that you've been in? And if so, what advice would you give to other people who may have experienced or been through similar situations?
So I have a therapist now, and she's been really helpful for me. Like, even though my life has gotten a lot better, like academically, and like I get upset a lot less frequently. Like sometimes I still have bad moments. One time this was actually just a few months ago, but I cried in front of everyone in class, because I was feeling already really bad about it, and then something set me off, and I cried in front of everyone. It was so embarrassing. So even like 3 years later, it's not going great, but I still like try to take it day by day. Like I don't like when people say, "Oh, it's going to get better," or like, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger," because like I feel like those things kind of invalidate what I went through, because it just seems like just one of those things I can get over.
Yeah, just dismiss your thoughts, basically.
Yeah, so something I do is like I kind of know by now that it's not something I can picture myself ever getting over. But what I can do is like just try to take everything day by day and like make it my goal. Like, okay, we're going to get to the end of this day, and you just keep doing it until like 3 years later and like things are kind of better, you know?
Right. So basically it's not to put too much pressure on yourself and take everything day by day, and just kind of set yourself small targets to get to without putting too much pressure on yourself, and focus on reaching those goals, and go about things that way, instead of overwhelming yourself with too much and expecting lots from yourself quickly.
Yeah, and especially like when you're really hurting about things that have happened, like to imagine that it's just going to go away, like that kind of makes it seem like what happened wasn't so bad. And it just doesn't help me, at least like personally. Like all those inspirational ideas, like doesn't do anything for me. Like I just try to focus on like getting through like things individually, and then somehow like I end up like in the future and it's slightly better, you know?
And I don't think I actually ever asked you throughout our interview whether you know the cost of either of these programs, or a general estimation.
I do. Pacific Quest, for the 2.5 months I was there, was $50,000.
50?
Yeah, 50,000.
Oh my goodness! But $50,000 for less than 3 months.
Yeah, and Maple Lake was 10,000 a month.
Oh my goodness! And how many months were you there altogether?
11.
Jesus.
Yeah, I always say I'd rather have Birkin bags than abuse.
Absolutely.
Or a car.
$50,000 for less than 3 months. Yes, absolutely. A car, a deposit on a house, or even paying off a large amount of a house or piece of property.
And, like, to be honest, that's part of the reason why, like, I feel like sometimes I invalidate my own experience, because I know that, like, since my parents could afford that, like, I should have a good life, you know? So
no, you should absolutely. Yeah. There is no monetary value that you can put on wellness, well-being, mental health. There are so many situations that we see regularly of people with plenty of wealth in the money sense of wealth anyway, that still find themselves with ill mental health, incapable of, I mean, we can reference back to the Paris Hilton documentary, and how she to this day is still struggling with the experiences that she had in one of these wilderness program experiences where she was subjected to, you know, similar institutionalized abuse. And we can see that no matter the amount of fame and popularity and wealth that she has gained throughout her career, she's thought to bring out this documentary that highlights that abuse because she's still affected and impacted by it day to day. So, you know, that's just one example of how you can never put a monetary value on your own life and well-being and dismiss your own thoughts and feelings just because the programs were expensive and your parents could afford to pay the fees. And I guess a lot of that probably comes down to the fact that people at Pacific Quest whose families couldn't afford to send them on to another program got sent home, didn't go on to another program because they weren't seen as worthy to continue supporting if they couldn't financially contribute to the programs or afford the fees. So maybe that's all linked in with the worth of a person based on whether they could or couldn't continue and their financial status.
When I look at the people who couldn't continue with the programs because of financial reasons, like if you put them beside someone who was there for longer, like their progress is quite like you wouldn't say that they're more accomplished and that's why they get to go home. So I think the finances are a huge part of it.
Is there anything that we haven't covered today that you think is important to mention about either of your experiences in these programs?
So after leaving, I've tried to leave online reviews, and I've heard from other people who have been there, they keep deleting them. So on Google, whenever I try to upload something, it doesn't work, and there's only 5-star reviews on it. So they're trying to control it there.
So a word for anybody that's thinking about looking up these programs and realizing that, you know, there's only positive reviews. There's a reason why that's the case. I think that's important to note because a lot of parents, I think, are fooled or reeled in by these reviews, and it's so unfortunate the amount of manipulation that even parents face coming into contact with these programs.
I'm not mad at my parents for sending me there. I'm more mad about how they kept me there and how they've treated me when I came back. So at the beginning, I used to confide in them about how I felt, like how I kept getting nightmares. And one time they even told me to stop because I was upsetting them, like I was blaming them for it. And I still live with them because I know it's the best thing to do for myself, so I can save money.
But
yeah, it's definitely hard still living with them, knowing what they did and how they treated me when I got home. And something that really bothers me is that one time I told them what they did was wrong. I rarely confront them because I'm pretty tired of it. But one time I did. And then my dad told me that he doesn't regret sending me there because he's happy with the way I am now. And and to that, I think that the reason why I think I'm doing well is not because of what happened to me. It's because I had to fight to try to be a normal person and try to basically create a new life for myself, all on my own. And that has nothing to do with the program. It has everything to do with me. And I'm just really insulted that my parents would think that this program helped me. And it's not my own resilience through everything I've been through.
And that in itself is exactly the right way to look at the situation in terms of what you have done for yourself. And I'm so happy to hear you say that and give yourself some validation, because it's probably confirmation bias that your father has here. They didn't know how to help you or what was best for you at the time that you went to these programs. And you were hoping that even these programs would be the answer at one time. And because you, as you said, through your own resilience and through your own want to do better for yourself and to be in a better position for yourself, you rose above the situation. You yourself applied for different universities and took yourself off to further education, which is so extraordinary, as we talked about before. But the fact that you were at this program at the time is probably exactly what your dad is putting that down to. And that's not the right thing at all. Like you've said, that you had no support in applying to these universities, no guidance on where to go or what to do, extremely anxious around educational environment, and still you did those things for yourself. And you are right to say that you're insulted by your father's opinion that it was one of these programs that put you on that path to doing those things for yourself. Because from what you've said today, and I know that every story has two sides, but from what you've told us today, that is not what happened at all. You yourself got you to where you are now, maybe with the financial assistance of your parents, you know, still being able to live with them, potentially having some financial help for them with things surrounding university, but not their financial aid towards these programs that you attended that from what you've told us today did absolutely nothing to help you get to where you are in terms of your mental well-being and your physical status enrolled in university.
Yeah. And my parents also never apologized, but they asked me to forgive them.
I think that's a huge sign that they know that something in that situation didn't work.
Yeah, so like they never say, "Oh, I'm sorry," but like whenever I like make a comment about what happened, they would say, "You forgive me, right?" So it's really one-sided that way.
Yeah, and I think that to me is a sign that your parents are aware that the program maybe wasn't right for you, maybe isn't right for anybody, that something a bit dodgy is going on in these institutions, that something very wrong is happening across these therapeutic programs. Maybe they're aware of that. Maybe they're aware that this program did nothing to help you specifically. And maybe your father saying, well, I'm glad I sent you there because you wouldn't be where you are today without it. Maybe that's him saying that to himself to make himself feel better about their decision to agree to send you there. Who knows? I mean, it's strange to think about our parents because they were us at one time with their own confusions and kind of trying to pay their own way through the world. And when I remember growing up, I used to think that my parents knew everything. They knew the answer to everything. They were like my heroes, and everything that they said goes, and everything they said must be factually correct and true. And as I got older, I realized that that's just simply not true. My parents don't really know much about anything, and their opinions were so different to mine, and we clashed over a lot of things, and they were wrong about a lot of things. And I know that my children will have the same thoughts and feelings about me. So I wonder how your father truly thinks and feels about your situation, and whether you'll ever really know.
Yeah, I don't think that they would ever admit to anything. And just like as a side note, of the people I've talked to who have gone through the same thing, none of them are like good with their parents.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I think that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, that does
like
say
for anyone
that, yeah,
considering it.
That does say a lot about the situations that people have experienced. And I have a few last questions from our conversation before we finish up today, from what we've just spoken about. I don't know too much about the culture of Singapore in terms of how people view, how women are viewed, in terms of the politics of Singapore, education in Singapore. So do you think that your father's perception of this program working for you, or the way that your parents treated you when you came back from this program, do you think that that's maybe a reflection of culture in Singapore, or does that not come into play at all? It might just be me being really ignorant, because I have absolutely no idea.
I'm actually not originally from Singapore.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think the culture has anything to do with it, because they've kind of acted like all the other parents. Like people I've spoken to from America, like they have their parents act the same way. Like they act like it didn't happen. They act like it improved them. So I don't
Right.
think it's a cultural thing. Like all the parents of the people I've talked to have similar reactions.
And what happened with your diagnosis of autism? You said that's something you don't believe you actually is a correct diagnosis for you today.
Yeah, so the reason why I was diagnosed with autism was mainly the flat affect, which I don't think I have as much anymore because like it was like a lot worse before. And also when I was a kid, always had like sensory sensitivities, and I still do. Like I don't wear jeans, like I don't wear jewelry because it makes me uncomfortable. But I think that's just like a preference thing. And another thing is that I get like excited about things. Like I have like interests that I really get into. And I was actually talking about this with my therapist, and she said that it's kind of like unfair to me that the fact that I get interested in things and excited about things like makes me have a diagnosis like that. Like there's nothing wrong with having autism, but like dismissing something that's just like part of my personality as autism spectrum disorder, it's just not right, you know?
Yeah. And what you said there about kind of it's there's nothing wrong with having a diagnosis of autism. I think the way to look at that also is that it's wrong to have the wrong diagnosis. If the spectrum is not something that you are experiencing, then that's where it's wrong. Not like velvet, like is like my nails on the chalkboard kind of thing.
Yeah,
Like,
same here.
oh my goodness, it gives me like goosebumps, like goose pimples when I come into contact with that type of material. I get extremely uncomfortable by it. Like if I go to a friend's house and they've got like a velvet sofa, there's no way I'm sitting down. And a friend once tried to hug me with a velvet dress on, and I had such a visceral reaction that she thought I was going to like punch her in the face or something. It was really strange, but I wouldn't then think that I would need to go and seek maybe a professional diagnosis because I was unsure of my kind of extreme reactions to that material.
Yeah.
Also, if I was standing in front of my favorite band and getting extremely excited, or like when there's a really good piece of like really, really like great piece of news with the podcast and I get really excited, I wouldn't think to go and consult a professional about what that could potentially mean in terms of a spectrum diagnosis.
Yeah, so I'm not so like upset about the label of autism. Like I'm more hurt by how that diagnosis has led to so many traumatic events in my life.
Yes, absolutely.
So I feel like it was used like almost as a weapon against me. And that's the problem I have with my autism diagnosis, not the idea of autism itself. Actually, I'm planning on getting tested again just so I have like closure on it. Like,
okay,
I know I don't need to. It's just something like I've been wanting for a long time, and like I'm planning on doing it soon.
And if you do, it would be great for you to get in touch with us and to let us know what is said, so that we can update the listeners on that particular piece of information, because I know a lot of people that listen to this show regularly get in touch to ask if I've had any updates about particular people. So it would be wonderful to hear what the results are. And I think you're right about the interesting thing about the autistic spectrum itself is that anybody could look at it and identify with certain parts that would contribute to a diagnosis. Almost like anybody can look at their horoscope for the week and say, oh yeah, that applies to my personality. It's so vast, it's so open that I'm sure if a doctor wanted to, any of us could be given a diagnosis of autism or global development delay or whatever term underneath that umbrella they wanted to put to somebody, they could do, because it's so open-ended and vast. But I've got some wonderful people in my life that also have a diagnosis of autism, and as you said, it's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. It's just that particular diagnosis has put you in positions that you didn't necessarily need to be in, and have negatively impacted your life, and continue to impact your life every single day.
Yeah, sorry, I just remembered something. It's like a big thing. So since leaving, I've had this problem where I feel delayed in age. So when I was 17, I felt around like 15, because that's when, like, I think it's around the time I left. So I feel like I've been kind of going backwards, and every year it kind of goes up. So like right now, like I don't feel like I'm in college. I feel like I'm in high school. And it's like a strange thing, because I know people around me are like 20, 21-year-olds. And I know I'm also that, but just personally, I feel like stunted in a way, because yeah.
I wonder if that's because so much of that time spent across Pacific Quest and Maple Lake was so difficult that your mind hasn't processed them as events that took place over a period of time. And so it's strange.
The delay is around as much as like the delay I have is similar to how far back I was in treatment. So like it's like around, I think I was gone for around a year and a half, and that's always how delayed I feel. And like it does scare me to like think that like I'm gonna have to feel like an adult, but then I'm still gonna feel like, oh no, I should be in college age by then, you know.
And another thing that we forgot to mention as well, but just before we finish up, is that you were not given the correct medical treatment for an ongoing bout of bronchitis as well. So just talk us through what happened there with them kind of neglecting your medical needs.
I had bronchitis for 2 months, but I didn't know I had bronchitis because they didn't let me go to the doctor. And I was coughing so hard, I was throwing up, and they didn't do anything about it. And the only thing I was allowed to eat was chicken noodle soup with crackers for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because that was their protocol for sick people. And I was sick for weeks and weeks, so this was all I was eating. And I remember I didn't have cough syrup for 2 weeks because they only gave me cough drops, but then other girls saw I was having cough drops and they also wanted them. So we ran out and I had nothing. And then, I was really sick and nobody took care of me, because like the nurse, she's close friends with the founders of it, and she doesn't really do her job, but it's not like they do anything about it because she's like friends with them, and she like, I think she was part of founding it even. But yeah, she was like, she wouldn't really give us things, and like I have to wear contact lenses, and one time she I really needed them and I kept asking and asking, and then I got blamed for not asking enough when it was her job to do it.
And how long was it until you actually got professional help and kind of medication to manage this bronchitis?
Around 2 months. Around 2 months before I saw the doctor.
And what did the doctor do?
He just gave me medicine, and I remember he said, "You don't have pneumonia, so that's good."
Oh, okay then. Well, that's all right then.
Yeah, it was a weird doctor.
It could have it could have progressed to pneumonia, but luckily it didn't. So it's all okay then. You still had to have the same meals for 3 times a day for 2 months and be subjected to, not being allowed cough medicine and all of this stuff. I don't. we heard a similar story to this about somebody who came on the show to talk about how her arm was broken and how they didn't tend to her arm, and eventually when she got it x-rayed, there were bits of bone floating around and all sorts of horrible stuff. So again, medical negligence seems to be another thing that is almost common across these programs, and also another thing that's just not good enough. How long was it after receiving medication from the doctor that you started to feel better?
I got better pretty quickly after seeing the doctor. So like if they had just taken me earlier, I could have gotten better. But like they saw me like throwing up because I was coughing so hard, and like they really didn't do anything about it. And also, like the staff aren't qualified to give you medicine. So at night, if you can't sleep, like they can't even give you melatonin because like they really don't have the experience. Like they just find random people to basically babysit us.
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned before, some of these staff members are only 3 or 4 years older than some of the people attending the program themselves. So so that leads me to the end of our interview today. I think we've as is kind of common in these interviews, we've only really scratched the surface of your experiences and these particular programs with Pacific Quest and Maple Lake. Do you know if either of these programs are still running? You said one of them is very good at quickly deleting any negative reviews, so that would lead me to believe that at least one
Maple
of them
Lake
is
open.
Okay.
Pacific Quest, I heard they closed for a while. So because the government shut them down because they didn't have a permit, but I heard they're back up again. I'm not entirely sure about that. But I know there was an issue with the government and some sort of permit. They didn't get shut down because of abuse though. It was like some legal thing.
And that is the unfathomable thing about this, the whole system. They're shut down over a permit, and they're not even like, is there any due diligence like when they reopen? Like that's the ongoing question with this whole industry and how it's able to continue. And I know that in Hawaii is different to the United States overall, and then the United States, from state to state, the laws are different, legislation is different. Utah obviously is exempt from so much of what other states are kind of that have in place around these types of programs, because so many of them that we're spoken about on this show all seem to be in the same area. So that I might even go and do a little bit of exploring to find out just how and why these things are allowed to happen, because so many of these programs popping up in the same part of the world, or people are coming forward to talk about their experiences from the same part of the world. So I don't know, it would be interesting to find out why.
Actually changed some of the laws recently, and I remember looking at them, and one of them was they can't deny food and water anymore. And I'm like, wow, they're just changing this.
So there's been some law change, but there's still a long way to go. Obviously your experience was in 2017, and Maple Lake Academy is still something that exists today. So even though there's been some change or reform in law and legislation, there's still a long way to go if programs like this are still open and still able to exist. And the more people that can come forward and tell us their stories, the more people like you, Daphne, who can come forward and say, like, these things happened to me, these experiences are very real, these therapists, this is what they're doing, with or without their credentials, these staff members that are unqualified and almost the same age as participants, this is what they are doing. And this is the efficacy of the programs. This is how ineffective and unhelpful they have been. This is actually how much trauma they've added to my life. And these are all the steps that I had to take for myself to get myself out of that situation and to pave my own way to a more positive future, which is what you did solely independently for yourself. And I think that's very important. And I'm almost encouraged to say that that's the biggest takeaway from this episode today, is to highlight the almost the danger that these therapists are putting people in, but also, on reflection of that, the difference that you have made for yourself independently from the decisions that you made on your own.
Yeah, like I think it's really important to separate the program and where you are, and like being aware that good things that have happened to you are in spite of the program, not because of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And when you say in spite of, I think, again, very important to highlight that you are not defined by your trauma, and you are also not defined by your diagnosis, despite what professionals may have said in the past. All of these experiences you've had from this diagnosis, whether it's true, whether it's false, it has defined who you are, because it has landed you in these programs and in these situations that have gone on to add to your ill mental health, to your difficulties in life, to these abusive situations, to then opening up to your friend who you were vulnerable with and had these discussions with. You wouldn't have had these stories to tell if you hadn't have been subjected to these programs that you were subjected to because of this diagnosis. So it all comes down to how your identity is not your trauma. Your identity is not your diagnosis. You are so much more than that. And you have told us that and proven that to us today by telling us that the way you are now is a position of power, of strength for yourself, a position of healing, a position of moving forward, and a position of setting yourself small goals and reaching them every day because of what you have done for yourself. And I think that is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and something that's also important is to know that like it's still going to be difficult. Like it's not easy, but that doesn't mean you're not working hard on trying to get past it.
Fantastic. So I think, Daphne, we've covered everything that we came here to cover today, and I know that there's going to be
that's everything.
I think so, and I think you've been extremely open with us and given us so much to contemplate and think about. And I know that there'll be things that we go away from. I'll be thinking, oh, I should have asked that, and you'll probably be thinking, oh, I should have talked about this, and that's hopefully the beauty of these discussions. If people decide to go on to do their own research and speak to other people that have experienced these programs by visiting places like the r/troubled teens subreddit, where a lot of people will be open and having the discussions about their various experiences within these programs. But just thank you so much for coming here today, for telling us your story, and for giving people a sense of hope in how they can achieve their own level of independence in the way that you have, Daphne. So thank you so much for coming here today. And
thank you for having me.
It's honestly such a privilege, and I appreciate you trusting me with your stories, and I really hope that you enjoy the rest of your day.
Oh, thank you.
Take care, Daphne. Speak soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That is the end of this week's episode. If you'd like to get in touch, you can find me at cultvaultpodcast@gmail.com or follow me on Twitter and Instagram at cultvaultpod. I'm your speaker, Casey, and this has been the Cult Vault.